Thanks for staying with us on Week in One. Now, the crisis affecting emerging markets has taken centre stage on ENCA this week. At home, there's rising inflation as well as unemployment, and the economy is in a technical recession. We take a look at the role politics has played. ENCA's Nicolaus Bauer filed this story from the Johannesburg Stock Exchange.
The reflex of any politician in an electoral period is to make promises that they can't necessarily keep. So if Cyril Ramaphosa, Mmusi Maimane, Julius Malema or anybody else hoping to run South Africa after the 2019 general election is making promises that involve a lot of money, that is exactly what South Africa does not have. In an environment of rising unemployment, rising inflation, slacking growth in a recession, the economic data does not paint a good picture for South Africa. At this point in time, all that can be done is mature political decisions that will lead South Africa out of this crisis. For investment to return, confidence needs to return to the South African economy. In order for this to happen, sound political and economic decisions need to be made in the run-up to the 2019 general election and beyond that as well. Financial analysts warn that any populist moves from a policy point of view will scare away investment further and lead South Africa further down the investment quagmire that we already find ourselves in. Nicolaus Bauer from the JSE.
Emerging markets, including South Africa, have felt the effects of US protectionism. Countries like Turkey have been hit hard, with Washington imposing import tariffs on their products. The lira tanked when US President Donald Trump took aim at Ankara, and it's been good and bad for businesses there. ENCA's Shahan Ramkisoon has more from Turkey's commercial capital.
It's one of the oldest and largest covered markets in the globe. Millions of dollars and lira are exchanged in the Grand Bazaar.
Hi guys, the name of the gallery is a carpet art. So this gallery is here about 33 years.
From famous Turkish carpets to this world favorite.
Good.
This is where thousands of small businesses operate. Entrepreneurs who understand the intricacies of jittery markets. Let's go back to this guy. He sells Turkish carpets for a living and says a stronger dollar works in his favor.
So nowadays we have lots of guests from different countries, and we are selling a lot. So like better than 2015.
Most, if not all, of these businesses thrive on foreign visitors. They pay in dollars, and it's a pretty sweet deal for most of them.
For business is okay. For business is okay, but for countries a little bit not okay, because for the people, tourists who is come to Istanbul, and it's for $100 they can stay one day. Now they can stay 4 days. It's good for the tourism. It's good because going up and they can spend more time, more quality, for example. But for the country, it's not good.
Selling finished products means they escape the import tariffs imposed on Turkish goods.
I'm not really affected by it because I do one-of-a-kind handmade stuff. So my customers in the States, they buy each particular item.
But they all admit it is having a negative impact on their daily lives, more especially on those who don't have the advantage of earning in dollars. US President Donald Trump isn't a favorite here. In fact, many blame him for the increased interest rates and high inflation, the result of import tariffs which caused the lira to tank.
Gone on a path that uses trade as a weapon, uses the dollar as a weapon, because people think that parochialism is okay. Selfishness is the normal state of affairs. And, well, if we think back to world history before 1946, 1947, the world was a jungle. And so that seems to be where President Trump wants to lead us again.
Tough words for a man who once worked for the US government, but it comes as many suffer, especially the big guys. This is the business district of Istanbul. It's fancy and has the financial clout that'll make your head spin with dollar signs. Trade wars are pretty ugly between Turkey and the US. Some companies in these skyscrapers will feel the money pinch. Back at the bazaar, a call to prayer echoes through the 60 streets and alleys. It calms the underlying nerves many of these people have but won't want to speak about. With their faith intact, they go about their busy daily lives, hoping and praying for success. Shahan Ramkisoon, Istanbul.
Well, more now from that former U.S. diplomat who's living in Turkey. Matthew Brisa says emerging markets shouldn't take trade tariffs lying down. He believes the U.S. president doesn't care about the impact his decisions have on other countries. Shahan Ramkisoon spoke to him about the Washington-Ankara trade war.
Thank you so much for speaking to us.
It's an honor.
Tell me what you firstly think about the current relationship between Turkey and the U.S.
It's the worst I've ever seen, and I've been involved with U.S.-Turkey relations since 1998. I've been really at the center, or was at the center, for about 8 years when I worked at the White House and back at the State Department, and I've been appalled of late when I see that the U.S. president, at the moment of great economic peril, when the finance minister of the country happens to be the president's son-in-law, is delivering a speech on how Turkey's going to get out of that financial crisis, and the U.S. president announces a new round of sanctions against Turkey, which could only be interpreted as an attempt to inflict harm.
What would you say about the current state of trade wars? Is Turkey reacting the right way to it?
First, I'd say that unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your view of democracy, what Donald Trump is doing is he's delivering what he promised in the election. He's placing America first. Is Turkey reacting the right way yet? I think it is, to be honest. And what's Turkey supposed to do? The responses of Turkey to the sanctions by the United States has been reciprocal. It hasn't escalated at all. If you do nothing in response, then one would argue you're just suggesting that you're helpless and you may be inviting more consequences.
So let's talk about Donald Trump's way of thinking on the consequences. You say it might be a selfish approach, putting America first. Surely he's thinking about the impact this is having on emerging markets. Or he's not and he doesn't care. Which one is it?
I think it's the latter. I think in general he doesn't think a lot about anything outside of his personal orbit. I mean, friends of mine who are in the administration in very senior positions say it is hard to believe how little curiosity he has about, let's say, emerging markets or the broader trends in the world.
Well, one analyst says U.S.-Turkey relations are riddled with problems. He says this is directly affecting the Turkish economy.
There's a lot of problems in the U.S.-Turkey relationship. You have the Pastor Brunson issue. You have the issue east of the Euphrates where America's backing a Syrian Kurdish group called the YPG. This is a group that Turkey views as a terrorist organization. You have the alleged mastermind of the 2006 coup attempt living in Pennsylvania who Turkey wants extradited back. So there's a lot of issues here. It's not something that's going to get solved anytime soon. President Trump has his strong beliefs on these matters. President Erdogan has his strong beliefs on these matters, and we don't see Trump as being very, very pragmatic. President Erdogan has tried to take steps towards him, but we haven't seen those steps come back from Trump. These latest round of sanctions on the Turkish ministers, it's no coincidence that the Turkish lira started crashing with these sanctions, so we can see the politics and foreign policy directly affecting the Turkish economy.
Well, let's go back to Argentina now, and the peso came under pressure following the abrupt resignation of the central bank governor. His exit comes amid fears that the economic crisis in South America's third biggest economy could worsen. President Mauricio Macri says he expects the recession to continue for the next 5 months. Aldrin St. Pierre has more from Buenos Aires.
The Argentino peso took a knock immediately after the announcement of the central bank governor's resignation on Tuesday.
This is a signal of the control of the IMF in the Argentinian economy. The resignation of Caputo gives a free way for the political orientation of the IMF.
Capito, a former finance minister, is the second central bank president to resign this year. And Argentinians watching these developments from the sidelines don't seem to buy the version that the sudden resignation was for personal reasons. But being told what to do is exactly what Argentina's leaders have to come to terms with right now, at least if they want the multi-billion-dollar bailout loans from the International Monetary Fund. The government is now pinning its hopes on a new deal for more money from the IMF, hoping it will restore some confidence in an economy that has endured yet another knock. On the streets, it means the pesos in these people's pockets is losing buying power. It's already lost half its value to the dollar this year. Aldrin Simpier, Buenos Aires, Argentina.
Well, as we continue with our focus on emerging markets, we also look at President Cyril Ramaphosa's visit to the United Nations this week.